All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I am flying solo today. So Johan will be back with us next week, but my name is Andrew. It is Wednesday. It is 4:30 p.m. Central Time outside of Chicago here, and we've got office hours today. So we're going to do a little bit of the usual today. Going to show a few updates from the community that I've come across that I think are important or at least worth mentioning here today. And then we'll get into some questions. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Hope you've got a few things that I can help you out with. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my browser here. So first thing I wanted to share, thanks to Johan for actually sharing this with me earlier today. But this tweet from Michael Niehaus, basically a message coming up in the message center for O365 or M365 rather, is that some devices are being offered the Windows 11 upgrade, even though Intune policies are set so that they should not be getting Windows 11. So wanted to make sure I pointed this out. There is in some of the fine text here that while they are working to address the issue, you can sort of work around this issue by pausing the Windows feature updates if you have those deployed. So maybe this is affecting your organization. I'd be interested to hear in the chat if any of you have seen this. But obviously, big enough problem that it rose to a message in the message center. This was an interesting one. I saw a post from Richard Hicks on this one. I had seen that this was possibly going to happen maybe a couple of months back. I saw that it was getting discussed, but the headline right here sure says it all. TLS certificate lifetimes will officially reduce to 47 days. Now, this obviously isn't happening tomorrow or next week. I believe 2029. Oh, here we go. Here's the timeline that we're looking for. So today, the maximum lifetime for TLS certs is 398 days. Starting March 15th of next year, we'll see that drop to 200 days. Then in March 15th of 2027, that will drop to 100. And then 2029, finally, that will drop to 47 days. So now is probably a good time to start figuring out how, if you're not already doing this already, how to automatically start or automate your certificate request and generation and application. 47 days is going to be a quick turnaround time, and I don't know about the rest of you, but certificates, not my most favorite thing in the world to deal with. So this is something that I want to start planning now rather than in even next year when this changes to 200 days. So this is a big change. All right. So we've got that one. Also came across this blog post over on the Patch My PC blog, another one from Rudy Ooms. I don't think we mentioned this last week, so apologies if this is a duplicate. But basically, there are scenarios where Autopilot for pre-provisioned devices will actually allow you to enroll some older versions of Windows, even if you've set enrollment restrictions for or preventing the enrollment of some of these older OS versions. So great blog post here, it basically explaining how that can happen. Recommend you read up on this if you're using pre-provisioning in your organization. And last but not least, I think last week we did discuss the the empty inet pub directory showing up on Windows clients. There was an update, and I saw a few different conversations going around about this. Basically, yes, that directory was added in order to fix a vulnerability. Whether or not that was just a workaround or not, I'm not sure, but that does seem to fix a vulnerability that is currently out there and that was meant to be a part of the April cumulative update. So Microsoft's recommendation, as you can see here, this folder should not be deleted, regardless of whether IIS is active on the target device. So if you're seeing INETpub on your devices after the April cumulative update has been applied, leave it there for now. We'll keep an eye out on this and see if anything here changes in the coming months' patches. So those were the few things that I had come across, though I'm sure there was a lot more that happened in our community over the last week. It has been, as I said last week, a very, very, very busy week yet again. So probably start to see that a little bit more here as we gear up to head up to MMS here in a couple of weeks. So I will make sure these links get shared this evening so that they're available to you as well. So let's see if we've got some questions here. I see Matthew's here. Hey, Matthew, thanks for joining us today. So first question, what are the service accounts needed and permissions for ConfigMgr? I see in the hydration kit domain controller, there's a CM underscore CP, a CM underscore JD, a CM underscore NAA, a CM underscore SR. In fact, I'll actually just go ahead and post this comment here in the stream so you can see all of these, plus MDT ones, which I don't think I need. Absolutely. So when it comes to the hydration kit, let's go ahead and take a look over here. I'll pop open one of my domain controllers here. And actually, I want to go in here. And we'll see what we have available right now. So if we go in here, you will see a number of those accounts that Matthew mentioned here in the chat. So the CM underscore CP account, you can see in the description, this is only used if you are using client push. So to be able to remotely push out a client onto a device. So this is a specific use case for this particular account, gives us least privilege in using a single account for this single purpose. So the client push account will need some specific permissions out on a device if you want to use client push. The JD account is for joining a domain. So in a task sequence, you'll often have join domain steps that require an account to actually join the domain and potentially put the device that's joining in a specific OU. So this account would be used in that context. The NAA account, or the network access account, no longer recommended to use. So let me see if I can actually pull up the documentation on that. But yes, this is sort of a legacy account. Typically, this is not an account that should be used anymore. Here's what I was looking for. So I'll pull that up in just a moment. The reporting services account, this is going to be the account that actually connects to the reporting services point. And so that's what that's for. Agreed, Matthew. If you are not using MDT in your hydration kit, or said another way, because you need to use MDT to actually use the hydration kit, but if you're not actually deploying the MDT01 server to have an MDT server within the hydration kit, these accounts here are not really needed. So those can go away, or those may not be used. Network access account would not recommend using. Client push account here. only if you're using client push, and then the join account for actually joining the domain. And then I mentioned I was going to pull up some of the documentation here on this. So there is basically some Microsoft documentation. I'll share this link as well that indicates all of the different accounts that can be used. So if we click here, basically you can see down here all of the different types of accounts. So here's your network access account. We've got our software update point accounts, whole bunch of different accounts that could be used. So I'll go ahead and share this. The network access account here, let's see. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. Basically, with HTTPS or enhanced HTTP, we want to go ahead and get rid of that network access account. That the password for that account is often stored in clear text on clients. You can see that there are some additional tips that if you do need to use it, you don't want to allow it to have interactive sign-in rights on the account. There are a lot of different things here, a lot of different reasons to not use the network access account, so just don't use it. And then on the, where to go here, reporting service point account, this is basically the account that's used to, you can see here, the SQL Server Reporting Services, or SSRS, will use the Reporting Services Point account, or RSP. It's often abbreviated as. Will retrieve data for reports from the database. So this account actually has to have some additional permissions here, both on the site server and the SQL Server itself. So this is a fantastic reference document. It's going to show all of those accounts that you may use, as well as the permissions that may be required. And in a lot of cases, some notes on what you want to make sure you absolutely do not do, like grant those interactive sign-in rights. So I see the question here, is the CMSR account just running SSRS, or does it need to exist in the console with a role assigned as well? Let's see what I've got going on here. So let's take a look over here. So in my reporting services point, I am referring to, or I am using that actual account here. So that is the SSRS account that's used to actually connect to the database. And that should, let's see, show up. Those are that's not what I want. Here's what I want, the accounts. There we go. So it does show up here in the console, basically where you do have to configure this for the reporting services point to actually function. And you can see here, I have a couple of those accounts configured here in the site, and the network access account is, of course, not being used here. So I hope that helps. And yes, the follow-up question here, for the example for OSD, you would need the CMJD and others. Yes, let's see if I've got a task sequence set up to use that account. I should. Let's check this one maybe. And we can look at the exact step that is being used, or that account in the hydration kit is being used. Let's see here. Nope, it's not going to be there. There we go. So you can see here in the apply network settings steps, I had to look for a second because often I just have this as a join domain, or labeled as a join domain step rather than apply network settings steps. But But essentially here we put the domain that we want to join and then the specific OU. Obviously we've got a nice UI that we can use to browse to whatever OU we want to join to. And then you're going to use an account that has permissions to not only join to the domain, but also ensure that it can be, the device can join into the specific OU that you've specified here. So in the event that you have delegated access configured, you want to make sure that you have those proper permissions on this account in that OU. All right. No, so I see the question here about the CM SR doesn't need to be in the administrative users. I do have that. Oh, yes, not in the administrative users, but it is in the accounts. Correct. Absolutely. I misread your question there at the beginning. And then we should, as long as we can go over here and go to reporting. You can see that I've got my reports available as normal. All right, excellent. Happy to help. All right, hey Matt, I see you're joining us today. Johan had an appointment that he had to attend this evening, so just flying solo tonight. Absolutely. Great point here. Mike Terrell joining us. Thanks, Mike, for this. Make sure the join domain account has the requirements for domain hardening. Absolutely. Let's see if I can pull that up here. So here is our... So basically a few different requirements that came out as part of this KB. So this was some domain hardening that started back in 2022, and sort of they finalized the changes here in August of last year. But these are the three scenarios where when you do have the domain hardened, you need to make sure that the user attempting to rejoin or reuse a computer account is the creator of the existing account, or they need to be the computer needed to be created by a member of domain administrators, or you need to have here. Whoops, that is not. The owner of the computer account needs to be a member of the domain compute controller. Allow computer account reuse during domain join group policy. Fantastic call out, Mike. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Absolutely the case. So I will share this link as well. All right. See a question here from Diego. Do you know how to properly format the security baseline policies applied to clients? I downloaded them using a guide this URL, but the CSV file is a bit hard to work with. Diego, what are you using? Just group policy, or using the Intune baselines? And in addition to that, another question would be, which baselines? Are these the ones that you're downloading from Microsoft? There are a couple of different ones that we've talked about here. So if you've got a little bit of clarification there, I think would help. If you could, please. All right. Got another question here from Matthew. We have less than 5,000 hosts spread over a large geographic area and several sites, about 12 sites plus folks that work at home in several states and as far away as Manila. I think we need one primary site, a DP at each site. Would one MP on the primary site server be okay, and one software update point as well? What would you recommend? So this is, when we look at different geographic areas, honestly, normally I would rely on Johan to answer this a little bit more in depth than I would. So I would say I will mention this again for next week to see if he has some additional information here. Or Mike, if you're still here, if you've got anything you'd like to add, would appreciate that as well. But basically, the setup that you're saying, Matthew, is fairly common. Some folks would go to multiple management points just for redundancy. Same with software update points. If you're, I don't know if you're strictly config manager or if you're co-managed here. Um, um, I would maybe encourage you looking at least for your clients, using Intune for updates if you are co-managed already. And Mike's got a follow up here, one primary site, and then leverage P2P technologies basically for distributing content at these individual sites. So you can do that through a number of ways. You've got delivery optimization, um, you've got branch cache, and then you also have some additional paid solutions like Two Pints solutions that you could also check out that may help direct traffic a little bit better than having too many distribution points. These days, the fewer the distribution points, the better. Um, is the general recommendation for sure. But you're on the right track, Matthew. I think I'm going to take a note just for us to talk about that a little bit more in depth next week as well. So just one second, making sure I've got a note here. All right. Yeah, great point. So Mike mentions here you could place site servers in other data centers, but this might not be necessary. I know of a fairly large bank, around 500,000 clients, that only had ConfigMgr servers in 3 core data centers. So it depends on a lot of different factors for sure. Connectivity back to your data centers, um, internet speeds, things like that. It's a big depends. I think mostly what you'll find though is less is better if possible. All right. Yep. Great comment here too. We just commissioned 10 Windows 10 DPs in favor of peer cache for ConfigMgr stuff and delivery optimization for Intune stuff. Fantastic. All right. So let's see here. So Matt's asking, what's your recommendation for a PC to run Windows 11 to build VMs on it with RAM, CPU, etc.? And if you can share a link from eBay. Absolutely. So just some general search tips, honestly, and you can find some of these things on eBay. Uh, uh, when it comes to processors, an i7, excuse me, an i7 or equivalent or better, i7 and up or equivalent, I should say, processor, fantastic for a home lab device. RAM, at least 32 gigs of RAM, but depending on what you get, or RAM is, last I looked, at least DDR5 has been fairly cheap recently. And then as far as storage goes, at least a 1 terabyte NVMe drive. These days I have been looking at like an Optiplex 3060 or later, in order to run these things natively. I know there are some Lenovo small PCs. There's some HP small PCs. But I have primarily used Dell Optiplexes in my home lab, just following those specs. And I've had a lot of luck with them, but I've seen plenty of other home labs online where folks are having good luck with HP, Lenovo as well. So it's all about really just popping onto eBay, trying to look for those specific um, specs. So if I look at like an Optiplex, let's see, I said 3060, but I've just got one that's actually not one of my Hyper-V nodes, but like a 7060 rather. And then if you want to look for like an i7, you can see here there are some examples right here. So you could pick one up for $189. Here's 250 for a micro, and then for most of these, you can just take, and if they come with 16 gigs of RAM, get a 32 or a 64 gig kit. There are some crucial kits that will actually, these Optiplexes will support 64 gigs, and then you can pop a new NVMe drive in there, and you've got really quite a powerful, solid machine for not too much money to run quite a few VMs off of at that point. As far as how much RAM you need in there, how many VMs do you want to run? How many clients? We've found that 32 gigs of RAM will get you, maybe a domain controller and a site server with a database and stuff if you're going to be running ConfigMgr, and then a couple of clients on top of that. But of course, if you go up to 64 gigs, you can run some additional clients, maybe another server or two if needed. So it all depends on what you're going to do. But just general tips, Optiplex 7060 and up, i7 or better or equivalent AMD processor, 32 gigs of RAM at least, and a 1 terabyte NVMe drive. So I hope that helps, Matt. All right. So Diego mentions, so Intune security baselines that are applied to devices, we need to export the baseline to get a report in an editable format to know which are enabled and so on. That I can help with. So the tool that we often use is the Intune management tool from Michael Carlson. Fantastic tool. We've mentioned it here a couple of times. Let me see if I can actually just pull this up right now. Get rid of all this. Was doing some demos yesterday. Let's go here, I think. Intune management. Nope. It's my first time using a keyboard. Let's see, that is a little bit older version. Let's go here. I just want to make sure that I get you the latest version that I was using here. I know I've got a newer version. Well, guess what? This is the easy way to do this. Let's just download the latest version. Which it looks like I have previously. So we're going to go like this. And then we'll go in here. And then we'll go ahead and start up this tool. So let's see, we may have to log in here, but this is an absolutely fantastic tool. It allows you to export and report on different things, compare different policies, and endpoint security policies that have baselines are one of those things. So you can see here, I've got a Windows baseline. This is just a default baseline that I create depending on what version is out there. I make no changes to that. And the reason that I do that is I make another baseline if I go this route for baselines, because as I said, there are a couple of different ways to do this. I'll create another one that's a custom baseline, and then we can actually compare the two. So what you do from here, select which baseline you want, go ahead and document. You can choose your output type here. So if it's CSV or HTML, Markdown, whatever, you can go ahead and select that output type. We can give it a document name, a little bit of customization here, and then we can go ahead and start the output. And this will take just a moment here. Yep, I see the question here on can I give the URL for this tool? Absolutely. I will make sure I share this in our links this evening. They'll be under this live stream within the next 24 hours, typically. So you can see here, after this export completes, we get some information about who generated this, what tenant this is coming out of, when it was generated. And then down here, we'll see all of the different security baseline settings, as well as what we have them set to. So fantastic tool. Again, I use it a lot for this type of documentation, but we can do a lot of other things with this tool. So I will make sure that gets shared this evening. All right. Oh, Matthew, I see your comment here. Put in the request this week to set up the primary site and first DP server this week. That's awesome. Both good luck and congratulations for putting in that request. That's the most important step. All right. Let me see here. I've got. So Jamie's asking, think we can get a DCR to do a sysprep a device if Shift F10 is locked down. Autopilot fails until sysprep is done due to hash not being imported before Autopilot started. Need to sysprep for success. I'm not quite sure that I follow. So Shift F10 is locked down. Autopilot's failing. I'm not sure I've run into that, Jamie, but if anybody else has in the chat, please feel free to share. All right, we've got an activation question here. So Windows activation versus Windows subscription. Does a Windows device with an E3 or E5 license and Intune managed need to have both to remain in full support? Our users have E3 or E5 on their accounts, but many of our machines, including new Windows 11 laptops, are not activated, but the subscription is activated. Interesting. So activation issues. Let's see if I can pull up a couple of things here. Let's see, is this what I want? So this is one thing to look out for. So yes, your users do have to have the license first and foremost, and then Windows does need to activate. Some of the things, I think this is the document that I was looking for. Some things to look out for. Conditional access policies can cause issues where Windows is trying to step up from one version to another. So you do need to have some excluded applications here. So that is often a big gotcha. I've seen that come up as an issue where Windows just isn't activating. Not sure if that's exactly your case here, but it does sound like activation is not happening for some reason. And as long as that user that is licensed has logged in and enrolled that device, um, it should work. Well, in theory. So let's see if I've got anything else in here. That was the big one. So I will share this. Any other tips or anything? We don't. Oh yes. So we not having an activation key. Thought OEM devices have a key embedded on the motherboard. Is that true? Yes. If as long as you've purchased a Windows license with that with that device, yes. So a common scenario is you may have an enterprise agreement, or an organization may have an enterprise agreement. The devices are purchased with a Windows Pro license on them, and that's what's embedded. And then, as part of the activation process, it will step up to enterprise or education, because you may have your users licensed with those. In this case, if you've got E3 or E5, that's exactly the case. So it's trying to step up your Windows Pro license to Windows Enterprise based on your enterprise agreement. All right. So, a question here: if I have a task sequence module with two steps, set a TS variable where I'm setting BIOS settings using the TS variable for the BIOS password. Uh, is setting the variable right before use okay, or should it be set at the task sequence start to allow more time before use? And then there was just a follow up comment here in the chat that the environment variables can be used as soon as they're defined. So that's how I often define them. If I've got a few variables that I know I want to use at some point during the sequence, I'll set them up at the top, like post actions to reboot at the end of a task sequence, or some of the delays and timeouts. I'll set those to way longer, and I'll just do that right at the top of the sequence. Let's see if I've still got. See if I've got one configured in my lab like that. Yeah, so here I've got a group of setting variables. So the post action, that'll just reboot the device, error dialog, timeout, so on and so forth. Um, I think that I would probably just set these up here at the beginning, but that's just how I've always set most of my variables are right here at the top, and just leave them separated in this group. Oh, that's an interesting one. So recently moved devices from one ConfigMgr site to another. Both were syncing devices to the same Intune tenant, and we now have duplicates. What is the easiest way to clean that up? So a couple of ways, maybe. One, you can wait for, assuming this is only duplicating on the Intune side. I guess I should ask that. You're only seeing duplicate objects on the Intune side, or are you seeing them both in Intune and Entra? Um, from there, my answer might be a little bit different. Correct. Just Intune. Okay. So if it's just Intune, um, a little bit of PowerShell scripting would probably be able to. Oh, both true. Okay. So with Intune, a little bit of PowerShell scripting. You could compare last activity time on your devices here. For example, when I go and look at my Windows devices, I've got a last check-in time that shows, in this case, I've got some that haven't checked in since July of 2024. So two ways. You could do that through PowerShell, or I can go, you can see I have some automatic device cleanup rules. I have these very long in my lab. At least I consider them to be very long. Your organization may be this long, or actually that's the longest you can go. So your organization may be this long, or they may be even shorter. These device cleanup rules are going to automatically clean up those duplicates eventually, depending on how you have this configured, if you have it configured. Otherwise, PowerShell checking last check-in time, um, assuming that the duplicates don't have the same last check-in time. I would say the same for Entra, which you're going to have to use PowerShell for Entra anyways, if it's more than a handful of devices, because Entra has no concept of automated cleanup. So if I pop into my Entra tenant here in my lab, and give that a moment to load. You can see I've got devices that in my lab I don't often clean up in here, and I don't want to, because then I can provide examples like this. I've got a bunch of device objects that if I was in production, I probably shouldn't have devices that haven't had activity in the last 3 years. So you can use a little bit of PowerShell to go ahead and clean up these old devices that haven't checked in a certain amount of time. There are a couple of scripts that we would normally share for this. Let me see if I can pull them up here real quick. Let's see. So I know Joss Lieben has one. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one too. From Mr. T-Bone. So this, I think we've shared this one before when this was released. It was a little over a year ago. So if we go down to, his script here, basically it's going to key off of some of that information using the Microsoft Graph module. So you can set how many days in the past you want to disable those devices. So if you've got a device that hasn't had any activity in Entra in the last 60 days, it's going to disable it in this current default setting. And if there's been no activity within the last 90 days, it's going to go ahead and delete it from Entra. And then let's see, is it a different one or is it the same? Yeah, it looks like this is the same script. We'll deal with both Entra and Intune. So maybe this will help in your scenario. So let's see. I could only wish for the device cleanup. Boss doesn't want to for asset reasons, but we'll need some persuading. But a good 1,000 devices. They'll have a newer activity time now. Have cleaned up some manual ones recently in the UI, which was painful. Absolutely painful, especially for 1,000 devices. So this would be my best recommendation. Is using this PowerShell script. I do have one or two more that I just can't find quickly that are other potential options that I'll make sure we drop in the links for this evening. And those should get you started at the very least, hopefully a little bit of inspiration to help. And this is the important part with any of these scripts. Just make sure that we all have a boss, right? So make sure you've got some agreement on when on the activity date that you want these devices disabled and then deleted. And if possible, this is definitely something that I recommend throwing in production as well to keep those things clean, to keep your tenant clean, to keep Intune clean, and things like that. So I will make sure to post this evening. All right. Benny's asking, do you know of any good scripts that can automatically tag new Autopilot devices with a certain tag? This would be useful for my dynamic AED group. I think so. I feel like Johan might have a script for that. Let me see here. I'm going to see if I can find something real quick. I could be wrong, so I don't want to. I don't want to put this all on him, especially when he's not here. Let's see. Is this in here? That might not be it. Let's see, is this one here? I do remember coming across this. This isn't necessarily for new devices, but it might help you, Benny. I pasted twice. Steve Weiner put together this blog post last year on updating Autopilot group tags. So if you're going to change from one group tag to the next, but something like this you could use for just setting it in the first place. So this is one option. Was this one of the other ones here? This might help as well. So full disclosure, I have not used this script, so please test it. But something like this might be a little bit of inspiration as well that you could have run on sort of a scheduled basis. Basically getting those devices and then assigning whatever group tag it is you need to assign them. So I'll add both of those in here, Benny, see if those help you out. All right. So got another question here over on YouTube. Upon an Azure join, I've seen on rare occasions, a server error code 8019019F. So let's see. That particular sorry, let me finish this. There is no device in Intune. No username, password, and MFA all seem to go through fine. Have I seen this? That particular error code doesn't ring a bell. 019019. I'm having trouble finding anything on that. Yeah, if anyone else has seen that, so this 8019019F error code on an OOBE Azure join. I assume we're a native Entra join at that point. So I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I don't recognize that particular error code. Benny's asking, any good methods to update devices with latest patches after Autopilot? I know Microsoft is looking at this, but it seems to be on hold still. Any update when it would be released? So I do have one option here. I think this is the one I want. Here we go. Michael Niehaus has written about this on how to install updates during the Autopilot. So I will post his blog post here. So in this method is just a PowerShell script that will do that. As far as timing, I know that there was an update recently that this would be happening natively. I'm just trying to remember when the heck we talked about it. Windows. So basically, as you mentioned, Benny, that this was Microsoft was looking at this. They released this in insider preview, and it was about to go into production, but there were no controls for it. So in your organization, you had no way of turning this off. This was basically just saying once you deploy Windows, once you boot up, eventually it is going to, during out-of-box experience, it's going to just automatically apply the latest quality update, and you'll have no control over that. So they pulled it back, decided not to put it out into production, and then we're working on releasing it with controls. So I recall an update, but I don't recall if there was an actual time or a release date. Let's see if I can find it here. Well, in the process of looking, I did find the deep dive on how it works from Rudy. So I will post this. But I'm not sure that I've got an actual release date. So the closest thing that I've been able to find salt, but it looks like mid 2025 for Windows 11 22H2 and up. Here we go. There we go. Found it. So if we go down here, watch for an update in mid 2025 when the policy becomes available and Autopilot changes go live. So we're keeping an eye out on that. Nothing out in production yet, Benny, but it is coming. In the meantime, if you do want to update during Autopilot, would recommend using Michael's PowerShell script here to get that done. All right, we've got 4 minutes, and it looks like I've got a couple more questions here. I have a question. Shares are popping in and out on a remote distribution point. The hardware is fine. We ran Wireshark, and there's 75% packet loss when distributing content to that remote distribution point. If we bring that distribution point back on site, content distributes fine. What do you suggest before I go more gray? Oh gosh, you're in the Wireshark realm. It could be so many different things. So the hardware's fine. It's out on a remote distribution point. You can bring that distribution point back on the on-site network, and it's fine. I was probably not telling you anything surprising here, Clive, but my mind automatically goes to something on that remote network that it's on. But um, yeah, hard to say. It could be a whole bunch of different things. A suggestion in here is, duplex. You got proper duplex mode set and all that. Could be an upstream switch issue. I've seen things like that. I've seen just as much as Johan has talked about how many times he's run into SSL inspection problems. Um, but definitely, check network adapter settings would be a first stop. Even if you've checked them already and it is those same settings are working back on site, double check those. Maybe play around with those a little bit. Check your upstream switch settings. Something I'm always looking for, is the possibility. I've been in networks where we have inconsistent configurations for jumbo frames being enabled or jumbo frames being disabled. That may or may not be an issue. Excuse me, in your particular network. Um, but without actually, really diving in and looking at the details and things like that, sort of end up grasping at straws there. So I'm sorry to say that I don't have much more than that. But if you do end up resolving it or getting a little bit closer, I'd love to hear in the future what you ended up doing or what your network engineering team ended up doing. All right. All right. I think I've got time for one last question here. And it looks like over here on Twitter, we've got one. Is there any benefit to doing the post task sequence action compared to just a reboot computer to install default OS step? Also, do task sequence variables carry on to other task sequences when called within? So the post TS action, I honestly don't know if there is still today a benefit to doing that. I mean, when you do it this way, you're going to end up rebooting the device at the end, no matter what. I've just done it that way for so long. It's worked very well. It's solved issues and the problems where, all the way at the end, once the task sequence has said, "Hey, I'm done. Now go ahead and perform any other actions that you've set for me." And in this case, it just happens to be a reboot. When you do have a reboot here at the end, like this, I mean, this isn't totally at the end because we're still installing applications, but if I moved this down here, the task sequence is actually still running. Whereas this will actually kick that action off at the very end. The task sequence is done, it's successful. Now kick that off. I've always felt like having a little bit more control over that has been beneficial for me. So I still put this in there today. Um, and in terms of task sequence variables carrying on to nested, um, I don't believe so, but I don't want to say that for certain. I'm not normally, that would also normally be a Johan question as well, simply because I just don't deal with nested task sequences very often. Um, yeah, so let's see. Yep, okay, thanks, Mike. Mike gave me a simple yes, they do. So thank you, Mike. And I was just, where did that go here? Oh, I swear I just found it a second ago. Let's see if it's a variable here. Well, anyways, Mike says yes, absolutely. Oh, there we go. There's the official documentation on it. If the child task sequence creates a new variable, it's available for the rest of the parent task sequence as well. If the parent task sequence sets a variable, then the child task sequence changes the variable. It retains the last value. So, yep, environment is global. Thank you so much, Mike. I'm glad I was able to find this as well. So perfect. Well, hey, that takes us. We're actually at 5:32. So man, time flew today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. A lot of fantastic questions as always today. I appreciate you all helping me hold down the fort. Special thanks to Mike Terrell for joining and helping out. I really appreciate it, Mike. And let's go ahead and get rid of this. And we'll go back here. Thank you again, everybody, for joining this week. Next week, we should be back to regularly scheduled programming with Johan and I. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and we will see you then. Thanks, everyone.